Welcome to the Wolverine Digest podcast, the best spot for objective and authentic coverage of Michigan athletics. If you want open dialogue, honest opinions, and in-depth coverage of the maize and blue, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Brandon Brown, joined as always by Chris Brandler.
I was going to start by saying go blue.
Well, Chris, 6-0 is 6-0 is 6-0, right?
It sure is.
This one's interesting, man. This one's got quite a few different things we can talk about. I want to say a couple things first. One, Austin Tips, money is hell in this natural light. Two, it really, really looks like I'm sitting in a jail cell. This like big time this time. And three, I'm going to talk a little bit quietly because I am in the press box still, and there's people working around here. Chris down on the field. I don't know. You found an industrial technical center somewhere to set up shop.
You're seeing the ductwork, but it's really it's a pretty nice little cafe down here. They got a nice little spot. So
okay, exposed ductwork, maybe some brick. I don't know what else.
There actually is. There's stone. There's brick. There's wood.
Beautiful. All right. So, first things first, Michigan 6-0, 31-10, 10-10 at halftime. They figured a lot of shit out at halftime. There's no question. The offense looked different. The defense really clamped down. They get out of town with a 31-10 win. Now they're 6-0. They're undefeated for this big matchup with Penn State coming up. And this one was interesting, dude, because some of the stuff we talked about wanting to see for a while and different things we wanted to have transpire, we saw in the second half, and it's the best they looked all day. They ended up pulling away and winning pretty easily. I see a lot of people asking about Coach Mike Hart first. That's one of the things I wrote about in my 3 Up, 3 Down. The biggest down was, dude, what happened to Coach Hart? And is he all right? Like, what's going on, Chris? We heard you can't see, but I can literally lean over and touch where John Jansen and Doug Karsh were doing their broadcast. So I was kind of hearing some of the stuff they were talking about. I'm wondering if you got any word being down on the field down there about what happened? What's the latest or anything that you knew about what was going on?
I'm not sure what it was. I don't think there was because I was with another photographer and we just saw somebody calling for the cart, and then obviously everybody gathered around, but I don't even know if a play was ran over there. And so I think maybe I don't want to I'm not going to speculate, but I saw him as they were taking the cart off of him, or as he was being carted off, and he was kind of looking up, and you could tell he was a bit disoriented and trying to get his bearings about him. And so I'm not sure what happened. I don't know if maybe he got hit on the sideline or if it was, just a non-contact sort of injury or what it was. But, obviously you hate to see something like that, and you hope he's okay because he's such a big part of what they do.
Yeah, you can see some people in the comments here saying it was some sort of a seizure, and I think maybe they talked to the sideline reporter through the Fox broadcast, and that he had some contact with the team, I think, at halftime or maybe after halftime, and that he was okay. I mean, okay-ish, as good as you can be maybe in that situation. So,
sure.
Yeah, obviously that was the biggest down. I mean, when I'm going through, what were some of the things that were good, not so good? That was a weird situation, man. We're up here in the box, trying to see what's going on. There wasn't a lot being reported, and then all of a sudden you see, same thing. Even from up here, I was like, man, his legs don't look good. He's just kind of laying there, kind of trying to get his bearings a little bit and look disoriented. So, yeah, prayers up for Mike Hart. Hopefully everything's good. I'm sure we'll hear more about that as soon as possible, either from Michigan or on Monday at the press conference. So we'll keep thinking about that until that gets a little closer. I wanted to ask you a couple things about my 3 Up, dude. In this game, I mean, Michigan did a lot of good things. I think we'll obviously talk about J.J. McCarthy and his stat line and how he looked. But I just got to come back to Blake Corum again. I mean, the dude is he's just now proven week in, week out, reliable, productive, trustworthy. He's good in pass pro. He can catch the ball. He's not fumbling. He had the 50-yard run, another touchdown, another 25 carries. You can't say enough about him at this point.
No, I mean, he's Mr. Consistency. And I think coming into this weekend, we were curious how the passing game was going to look. We were curious whether or not, J.J. McCarthy was going to get to sling it around a little bit more than he normally has. He did. But, yeah, I mean, Blake Corum, again, up over 100 yards. I mean, and when you watch him down on the field, a lot of it isn't coming easy. I mean, he's working for everything that he gets, and he's taken a lot of blows. And you can't say enough about that guy. I mean, you take him out of the equation, you take him out of the fold, and, I don't know if it's the same type of result today. I mean, they lean heavily on Blake Corum as a consistent method of their offense, and you just can't can't say enough about him. What is that? Are we getting cash donations coming in here?
We're getting cash donations. I know I'm throwing you off
Incredible.
a little bit with the sound effect, but yeah, a couple things here from Shane Johnson. Chris, another shout out as his photographer. Prayers up for Mike Hart. Yeah, that is a luxury when you've got a guy like Fred Jackson standing over there too, who coached Mike Hart and coached running backs for a long time. Again, hope Mike Hart's right. And then here from Nick, again, appreciate the donation there. He loves the highlights. They look good in the sunlight. I have to. I'm telling you, as soon as I
is he talking? Well, yeah, I guess he is talking hair highlights.
I was like, whoa. Not happy with the receivers as a collective group. Maybe not enough separation, inconsistency. Yeah, I mean, there's, we've been. It's not just not calling pass plays every single time out. I mean, the receivers have to do their part too. I talked about Roman Wilson kind of running a lazy banana route last week, and it almost got intercepted. So there is a little bit of there is a little bit more going on than just calling a pass play and winging it around, and that's the stuff that we're not privy to. We don't get the chance to go in and break down the film and know exactly what those receivers are supposed to be doing on every single play. But I do think there's some blame to go around a little bit with them too. But today it was a little bit better. That's one of the things we'll talk about here after this. But I wanted to focus on this too, Chris. I don't know where you were during this stretch, but Michigan in the third quarter, it's still 10-10. It looks like it's going to be a 60-minute dogfight. And Michigan put together an 11-play, 98-yard touchdown drive that I think swung the game. I mean, that gave Michigan a ton of momentum. They ate up some time. Everything was working. They had a little Blake Corum in there, a couple JJ runs, finished off with a 30-yard touchdown pass to Cornelius Johnson. They kind of mixed it up all the way down the field like we've been wanting them to do a little bit more. And it led to a touchdown. I don't know how that looked from your vantage point down there, but up here I felt like, damn, that's exactly what they needed at that moment.
Yeah, I mean, you could see just more of a balance, and I think that was what Michigan needed. And obviously, the blocked field goal, Indiana at one point, I can't remember if that was before the half or in the third quarter, but, had an opportunity to take the lead, and, I could see it through the first half. The biggest complaint was a lack of creativity in play calling, and it just seemed like, we're sitting here wondering, like, why, when again are you going to start to use the weapons? And then the second half and in that drive in the third quarter you reference, they did it, and they looked really good. And I think when people are talking about, is there a concern about wide receivers, not getting separation? I think that goes back to also, we talked about that in the car ride back, like when, if you're out on the field, let's say you're Cornelius Johnson last week and you're out on the field for 60 snaps and you were targeted 0 time. Your routes are probably just by nature going to get a little bit lazy because the ball's not even going to come your way. And so that's not an excuse, but what it does speak to is the fact of how important it is to get those guys involved so that they feel like they are a part of the game. Ronnie Bell today, 11 receptions, I think 125 yards. I mean, that's, you're not going to get that every game, but that's the type of stuff you need to see. Andrew Anthony getting involved, Luke Schoonmaker again, obviously heavily involved in. They don't have to be Texas Tech, of yesteryear, but they do have to show that they can go out and sling the ball around. I think particularly in the second half, they did that.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot more of that mixed in. That last cha-ching was Nick again, also giving Chris credit. This is why you throw it more early, find out where the struggles are. That's what we've been saying all year.
Yeah.
And, 10-10 at halftime, I think I tweeted something about that. It's like, look, I'm not defending Cornelius Johnson's drop where he caught, over on the sideline. That was, you make that catch 100 times out of 100. But again, you play 55 snaps, you don't even get a target. It's maybe a little difficult for a receiver to stay engaged and locked in and oh damn, the ball's coming to me. I don't know what that's like at this point. I'm being facetious a little bit, but there is some truth to that. I think, and ironing some of these things out when you've got the opportunity to do so. And last but not least on my 3 up, and this is something we talked about yesterday. Some people have been a little down on him. Mozzie Smith was a beast today, dude. I mean, he didn't off the stat sheet necessarily. He had 5 tackles, 4 of which were solo tackles, which that's tough to do in a phone booth as a defensive tackle to make 4 by yourself. But again, this door was propped open up here, and I could hear John Jansen just raving about what he was seeing from Mozzie Smith. And there were a couple plays where he rattled the ball carrier. I mean, a shot straight to the ground, no yards after contact, and he was eating up double teams, and he was really, really good. I mean, he looked big, he looked strong, he looked immovable, and he did record 5 tackles, which is a good number for a nose. So I think he played maybe his best game of the year. I don't know what it would look like on tape, but it looked really good from the booth.
Well, it looked pretty good from down on the field as well. And I didn't even know how many tackles he had, but I mean, his play today was noticeable. I mean, they obviously gave up some plays, but for the most part, man, they were getting in the backfield. They were hitting hard. They just looked in the second half in particular like a complete team. Like the second half, what we saw, that's a team that, can possibly go down to Columbus and get a W and get back into the Big Ten championship game. The first half of that game, I think everybody was saying the same thing. Like, this just isn't good enough. If you're a Michigan football program that's intending on playing for a Big Ten championship and getting into a college football playoff and things of that nature, you just have to be better. And the good part about it is, in the second half, we saw that they could be, and they were. And so you want to see more of that balance moving forward for sure.
Not only Mozzie Smith, I see people saying the defensive line in general. 7 sacks today. I mean, Yabi Oki's in there again. Mike Morris is in there. Jalen Harrell's in there. A couple linebackers in there. I mean, they were getting to the quarterback today, and we thought with Connor Bazelak dropping back and throwing it, 49 times, there was going to be some opportunity for the pass rush to get home. How about my Rod Moore prediction picking off a pass, by the way?
About your Rod Moore. But I said, listen, how about 27-6? It was looking pretty, people were like, it's going to be 40. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. And, you think, at some point in time, Michigan's going to come down to earth and they're going to struggle offensively and they're not going to be lighting up the scoreboard. You saw that in the first half. But, again, able to close it out strong. The fact that J.J. McCarthy had 36 attempts today, he was up over 300 yards passing. Like, that's the type of, that's not an all-world performance. That's just a good, solid performance for your 5-star quarterback on the road. And that's what you want to see week in, week out.
I'll tell you what is an all-world performance out of him, though, is 78% completion on the road.
Dude's efficient.
Dude, I mean, it's one thing when you're, hitting 75, close to 80% when you're throwing it 15, 18, maybe 20 times. He threw it 36 times today, 28 to 36. The dude is accurate. He's got the arm downtown. There's still it's still not crispy, but it's getting better. You mentioned the 11 catches for Ronnie Bell today, another 9 for Luke Schoonmaker, 4 for Cornelius Johnson. Dude, your guy, 2 touchdowns.
Where was Andrell?
Made a couple nice plays. Andrell finished with 2 for 32, and he was in there a little bit more. Again, Roman Wilson out, so a couple other guys kind of stepping up. Saw some good things on offense, especially in the second half. Blake Corum, again, we talked about him. Now, on the flip side, really only one thing I want to focus on, because we talked about the Mike Hart situation. Huge bummer. Hope he's good. We talked about that. And you just touched on a little bit of, the lack of creativity on offense, more so in the first half. I mean, they get down inside the red zone again, and it's just they're not putting it in the end zone. It's looking like they're settling for field goals, a couple plays running short of the first down marker. I just don't really know what the goal was in some of those situations in the first half. Second half was much better. But one thing I noticed, and if this isn't Indiana, if this is a Penn State, or if this is an Ohio State, or somebody else who has a little bit more skill and athleticism and wants to do this, Indiana's tempo and their personnel was a problem for Michigan. Today was really the first day where I felt like the defense was a little disheveled and kind of out of sorts, and substitution was a little bit of a problem here and there. They'd snap the ball and the D linemen weren't set yet. I hadn't seen that all year. We've been praising them actually for the opposite of how sharp and well coached and prepared they looked, and the tempo was a little bit of a problem for Michigan today. And I mean, Indiana's running all these little dudes out there, a bunch of receivers, running backs splitting way out wide, moving guys all over the place. And it gave Michigan's linebackers problems in the first half. The DBs looked a little out of sorts at times. I mean, at the end of the day, dude, Connor Bazelak only threw for 200 yards. I mean, he's averaging 280. I thought one of my predictions was that they'd hold him under 250, like well under 250. And he was moving it early, but they really tightened up in the second half and made it tough for him. But again, if that's not Indiana, if it's somebody with a little more talent and some more skill on the outside, it could be a problem. So again, from your vantage point, I'm guessing it had a little bit of a different feel than what you've seen in weeks prior.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing that we keep talking about is, like, if Michigan could have won this game if they just continue to hand the ball off to Blake Corum all day long. Like, I don't doubt that. Like, that formula will work for a majority of the games this year. But really, it comes back to, Ohio State, Big Ten championship, college football playoff. And it's good that they were tested. The tempo obviously gave them a little bit of trouble, and it was good that they sort of got that experience under their belt. And so now they know they've got some things they got to clean up on. Same thing in the first half. Didn't look good. You put 10 points on the board. If that is a elite offense on the other side, Michigan's probably going into the half down 7 or 14 points at that point. So you always look. We go back to the Mike Valenti thing. You don't want to learn stuff about your team during a loss. Like, I think Michigan learned some things about themselves today, but we're able to get the win. They're 6-0, and now you come home and you get ready for a real big matchup against Penn State, and you win that game. You go into the bye week 7-0, and I think slowly but surely they're starting to figure it out, and they're starting to become more complete. And that second half, I think, was very, very necessary towards the to the success of that offense moving forward. I mean, you have to have your quarterback go out and have a day like JJ had today, and fortunately he was able to get it.
Well, we left Iowa City last week with a win, complaining, whining.
Yep.
Why aren't they throwing it more? Get these receivers involved, man. Get them down there. I want to see some receivers with some big games, more catches, more yards, more yards, more of this, more of that. JJ, let him throw it. Well, dude, he threw it 36 times today for 304 yards and 3 touchdowns.
And here's the thing about that. Did it look gaudy? Did it look out of place?
No,
Did it look like you were forcing it? No, it looks like that is a component of this offense that helps it run, and you should do that.
You know what it looked like? It looked like a talented quarterback throwing the ball to talented receivers against a shitty secondary.
Yeah.
What a concept, right? I mean, like,
and you know what the beauty is? Blake Corum still got his too. So you didn't have to take away from that portion of your game. You did more on the other side. And we've been hammering the table for weeks to see what we saw today. And I think, again, in the second half, if they can replicate that moving forward, I think they're going to be just fine. But you're going to need that kind of balance when you get up against Penn State. Maybe not Michigan State because they're dog shit, but Penn State, Ohio State, and then if you get into the conference championship game, you have to have what we saw out of them in the second half.
Well, I'll say this, though. Penn State's pass defense is not good. In Michigan State's pass defense is god-awful. I mean, this is what, do you want to run the ball a bunch of times? Do you want to pound it into a brick wall? Do you want to get Blake Corum his? We know Jim Harbaugh wants to do that. But, dude, if you can go out with a J.J. McCarthy and all those weapons and throw it all over the place with relative ease, I don't know why you don't do that. And I think they're going to be able – they did it in the second half here today. I think they're going to be able to do it against Penn State, and I know they're going to be able to do it against Michigan State. So that's
wait a minute. So hold up a second. So are we saying that Michigan got the win and we're generally content with what we saw?
Pretty pleased. Pretty pleased. I mean,
what a concept.
I like JJ running around a little bit. I mean, they only have him for 4 runs, but he's 26 yards. He's not taking sacks. A little scramble, a couple keepers. I mean, like it just.
He slid early. I noticed he got out of the pocket and he slid, which was great. And the second one, it really wasn't his fault, but he did take another big hit on one of his scrambles. And so, once you get in the mix and somebody's tackling you, it's not like you can get down and slide. Yeah. But I think he's going to be just fine. I mean, you got to let that kid play his game, and that's part of his game. Getting outside the pocket, creating, making plays on the run. That's what he does. And so. The more that Michigan allows him to do that, the better this offense looks.
I actually don't – I mean, it wasn't – you don't want to see it. That hit wasn't as bad as it kind of looked visually because he was kind of falling that way already.
He was falling backwards, yeah. It was more the back of the head on the turf.
He was up by his head, and he kind of hit the ground a little bit. But anyway, he popped right back up. Like you said, he kind of – you don't want him to take it, but he said it himself before. Like, I don't mind a little contact. I like taking a hit here or there. Remember we talked to – it was Matt Weiss. JJ's like, can you guys just be punching at the ball? And they're like, yeah, we're not doing that. Like, we're not going to punch at your throwing arm, JJ. That's not exactly the approach we want to take. So anyway, the second half was like a different game. 10-10 at halftime, dude. There were a lot of people up here that were just like, what is this, dude? What's going on? And then the second half was very, very different. Michigan puts a bunch of points on the board, a bunch of yards. JJ's throwing it around a little bit more. And you get out of there with a 21-point was it 21? 21-point win. Yeah, 31-10.
Yeah.
Didn't quite cover that spread, that 15-goal spread, 21.5, 22.5.
There were a few people down on the sidelines that were aware of that spread, by the way.
I'm sure. Always aware of that spread.
Yeah.
Last but not least, Chris, I mean, we were talking about it on the way in today. How are you feeling? The weather today, glorious.
This was just a perfect fall Saturday for football, man. The sun was shining, a little bit of clouds, cool breeze. Your boy didn't sweat once. Not an ounce of perspiration came down. I was feeling good. I was a little bit concerned this morning. I could see my breath. It was chilly. I'm like, maybe I didn't dress for the weather. And then the sun came out. And I even think I called you and I'm like, yeah, I can feel it. It's going to be a good one today. And man, it was just, every Saturday we get out and get to do this. And I feel blessed to be able to do it and spend an afternoon down on the field watching some football. So
man, oh man. And just to send us out just right, Screon with another 20-piece.
Mr. Consistent or Miss Consistent. I don't know. I'm not sure.
And then Nick with another 10-piecer. I mean, dude, just incredible support from you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.
We do. I really, really, really appreciate that. And we are going to do, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that RV's ready for Penn State. We also have apparel coming for Penn State. We've got the beer coming for Penn State. Penn State is going to be, the boys are coming in town. I mean, we got a crew coming. Penn State's going to be good. So, just stay with us. Stay tuned. Those things are coming, and make sure you come join us on Saturday.
On that same note, dude, up here in the press box, multiple people coming up to me. How's the RV, man? Where you got it back?
People are concerned about Rosie.
Yeah.
So I feel like one of my children has been out of state for a week.
Right. I said the same thing. I said, we left a family member behind, man. It doesn't feel right.
So, we got to go get her.
We're going to do our best to do that. So thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Me and Chris getting back on the road, heading back to Michigan. More content coming today, tomorrow, the rest of the weekend. We'll see you guys on Monday night. Take care.